CanMar Morning Talk Show, a fresh take on what's happening in the global cannabis and psychedelic space. Your power shot of cannabis and psychedelics knowledge, featuring the industry's hottest experts, thought leaders, trendsetters, influencers, and celebrities. I'm your host, Melissa. Join me and our esteemed guest as we reflect on the current and future climate of the global cannabis and psychedelics industry. He is considered one of the most respected Swiss experts around the development and distribution of hemp-based products, is a communications expert actively involved in the international development of the cannabis market, and is an entrepreneur and co-founder of the family-run Swissgate AG, the trailblazing Marco Hoffmann.
So Marco, we all have kind of a story behind how we got into the business of cannabis. It's a question that I love to ask all my guests. So Marco, I would love to hear about your backstory, your history with cannabis, and how you got into the cannabis industry.
Yeah, definitely. So it was quite spontaneously that I entered the cannabis industry. I did my apprenticeship in a commercial space, worked a bit on that area, and then changed to an e-commerce store in Switzerland, where I worked in the customer field relations management. And from there on, someday I thought what I want to do now, and then the cannabis space came up because I have a personal relationship to the cannabis industry because of some personal matters. So I know some people who have actually benefited from the benefits of cannabis, and in my opinion, we are missing here a lot of opportunities when we do not use the potential of this plant, because it's much more than just a smokable material, in my opinion.
Of course, of course. Yeah, and I think that's often the case. We kind of get into the industry, the industry almost finds you in a way. That's what I always like to say.
Definitely, exactly.
So tell me, tell everyone a little bit about Swissgate AG, how you and your brothers kind of founded the company, and what has brought you to where you are today, the kind of journey of Swissgate.
Yeah, sure. As I mentioned, I entered the cannabis space in another company that was now 5 years ago. And in this company, one of my brothers already worked with me. So Michael, the youngest of the three of us, worked there with me already. And because we are three brothers, we had every time a good time since we were little boys. So it was clear for us that when we found our own company, then it would be all the three of us together. And that's how we ended and decided to found Swissgate. And we are focusing on the development and the distribution of products with hemp-based ingredients in the fields of cosmetics, nutrition, and lifestyle. And yeah, we were founded in November 2019, so now 3 years ago, approximately. And we are still a startup company in the growth phase, but it's definitely a market with a lot of potential and interest. And we are quite lucky that we made that decision to found our own company here.
That's amazing. Working with family, I can imagine, of course, they're fun times, but is it ever difficult to work with your brothers?
Not difficult, definitely not. You have a totally other work relationship than you have with other people. That's quite normal, but it makes it much easier to communicate, and you know how the other people thinks and works, and so you have a lot of potential there, and you benefit from that.
Of course. Yeah, I think you guys understand each other on a different level. So in a way, it can be easier to work together. Amazing, yeah. Amazing. So when we met in Berlin for ICBC earlier this year, you guys were working on raising capital for the company. Are you still raising capital? And if there are any potential investors out there listening, what would you like them to know?
Yeah, so to your first question, our Series A financing round is still open at the moment. So it's determined to be closed by end of QA 2023. And what I would like investors like to know about us is that we are definitely unique in many ways. And we really try to separate us from the rest of the market, which has still sometimes a bit of a shady background and image they bring into it, and really stand for the future of cannabis. And that means we really develop our products ourselves, so we know what we do is innovative and exclusive on the market, and we know the benefits we are claiming can really be made. And this is all based on a data-driven approach. Then we work in close cooperation with universities, institutes, etc., to do testing and research on the products, because the big problem out in the cannabis market is there is a lack of market data available a reliable way. So that's what makes us different from other companies.
Incredible, incredible. And talking about the future, what are some of your hopes for the future of Swissgate? What do you see or hope the company will achieve in the future, maybe the next 5 years, for example?
Yeah, the main focus of our company is exporting our products to international markets, because we with Swiss Quality stand really for a unique product. And so our future is definitely entering foreign markets and bring the benefits of cannabis to locations where it isn't already. And that's how we did it in Switzerland, and that's what we want to do in other markets.
Amazing. And, you know, talking a little bit about the Swiss market, what is the kind of current climate of the cannabis industry in Switzerland? And is there any interest from other countries in the Swiss market? What's kind of happening over there at the moment?
Yeah, in Switzerland, there's definitely a big awareness to cannabis products due to the cultural history, I would say, definitely, but also since the CBD market was legalized. So there's a big of demand there, but I would say about 50% of the market is still CBD oils, and that's a bit of where the problems come in, because the regulatory situation in Switzerland on CBD oils has changed since the beginning of October, so we were not allowed to sell them anymore. There is a bit of a difference how the authorities handle that in each part of Switzerland. But from a consumer side, it's definitely a big loss of product, because a lot of people benefit from these products. And if you take a look at the legalization process to legalize all cannabis and its ingredients, there will definitely be a legalization from my perspective, what I can say. But it will take quite a while, I would say, for like 5 to 7 years. Because there are still some matters which need to be discussed on all the levels, not only political, but also with addiction associations, for example, or driving issues, etc. And also the youth protection is a big matter we have to talk about, because when we legalize it, we have to do it in a way so we do not harm our society.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I think we talk about legalization, we think, oh, it's easy, we can just legalize it, but that's not really the case. There's so many moving parts that we have to think about in that process. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, especially with what's happening in Germany. Do you think that if Germany legalizes completely, that will affect kind of the rest of Europe? Do you think it will create kind of a domino effect?
I think it will definitely have some positive influences on other countries, but I would not say that it's the main matter for the other countries. But every government is looking at the other countries. How did they do it? It's like with Canada. Every European country takes a look at Canada and says what was good and what was not, and from there on they move on with their own proposals for a legalization. And I think it will be definitely a positive influence, but we can learn a lot of them, because the mistakes which are now made in Germany, maybe later we can benefit as other countries. So there will be an improvement for every country, in my opinion.
Absolutely. It becomes like these various case studies, right? We can see, okay, well, they did this right, they did this wrong, and learn from that. So it is useful to have that kind of information when you're working on your own legalization in the country. So you were talking a little bit about the hemp products. Obviously, that's a big thing in Switzerland. Can you talk a little bit more about the development and distribution of hemp products?
Yeah, for sure. So the main part we work with, we see the hemp plant, you can use every part of this plant. So it's from the roots to the buds, you can use every part of it and gain some different benefits from there on and create own products. So as I mentioned, our main focus is cosmetics, food and lifestyle. In the cosmetic part, it's all about the extraction of CBD and other cannabinoids. So to go mainly in this sector. But when you really talk about the hemp products, we are always using hemp seeds as a base, and there we go into the organic hemp food segment. There you use the seeds and leaves to create different products. With the leaves you go into infusible tea, for example, or a direct hemp tea, which you heat up and drink, or otherwise on organic hemp seeds, you gain the hemp flour, which you use to reduce wet and gluten, for example, in pasta and pesto. and bring it the benefits of cannabis. But because, as you know, there are a lot of potential in cannabis as a main food ingredient to replace unhealthier things, but also, for example, like in replacement for meat, etc. There's a lot of potential and science which needs to be done now on it.
Absolutely, and I think it's starting to gain traction. Cooking with cannabis. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts where people are speaking about this and saying, cannabis will eventually become an ingredient, just like rosemary or garlic or whatever the case may be. Do you think that's true? Do you think that at a certain point we'll kind of just use cannabis as we use other ingredients?
Definitely. Cannabis has to be seen as an additional optimization of our existing food habits, because the purpose of cannabis in food, in my opinion, is much bigger than a lot of people realize at the moment. Because, for example, one big problem is dementia. For example, you understand what I mean?
Yes.
And one of the reasons for this sickness is, for example, that we eat too much products with wet in it, so that has a negative influence. It's it's overgrowth, and there you can replace it and bring cannabis in, because it has a lot of omega-3, which is another reason, for example, for this. So if we as a society preventively eat healthier, we will have a lot of benefits when we grow older. And because society is still growing older and older, there needs to be improvement in our daily habits, and that cannabis can definitely be a solution there in some parts.
That's a great point, because people are living to be older and older. My gran was 94 when she passed away, so people are living longer. We want a better quality of life in our old age. So I think that's a really, really good point that you bring up there. So Marco, I also read that you're a member of various industry associations and boards and are very actively involved in this. Can you tell me a little bit about what these associations are and how you're involved in them?
Yeah. It's in one way it's me as a person, in another way as we as a company as Swissgate are actually involved in different associations, and they range from cannabis focused associations over e-commerce and sustainability. These are the three main subjects of them. And we really try. We are a startup, we are a young company with limited resources, but we think that when we as a company want to act successfully, we have to integrate with our framework and really go into the different spheres around the company. And that's why I really bring us in there. And that's really from active engagement to really be part of the board, for example, for the Swiss Cannabis Association, which is bringing the pharmacies and the private economical sector together, because there needs to be a clear segmentation in the market, what is for pharmacies and what is for commercial purposes in a way. And these are the things we really try to do, be the point of contact for different matters and exchange to different groups between us. But still, we're a startup. We need to do it in a way our resources allows it, but it's an approach we want to go further also in the future.
Of course. I think it's all about also working together to kind of improve things. So that's really important. And on that point, and you did mention this earlier as well, is your work with the universities. So can you talk a little bit more about what exactly the involvement is with the universities?
Yeah, sure. It started like 1.5 years ago. In Switzerland, there are a lot of recognized universities which have a really good scientific team, but also a good approach on the students. And because I just finished my own studying 2 years ago now, I know from a student side also what the benefit it can be if you can really do case studies for companies. And that's how it's all started. We have had some universities and bachelor and master study groups which done some business development projects for us in a way. And from there on now we really can launch now scientific projects with the universities. So next year we are really trying to be in a scientific way cooperating, but also still do not miss the students, because they are future experts and maybe some employees for the future for us. So we see that as a really interesting and very benefiting network for us.
Absolutely. I think that's a really great point. And is there a lot of interest from the students to get into this kind of industry? Have you seen a lot of interest from students in that way?
Yeah, sure, because as you mentioned at the beginning, everybody has a story with cannabis. Is it positive or not? That doesn't matter, but you have a relationship to it. And that's also how you see it on the students. A lot of them have some bit of insecurities and prejudices, but when you go into the briefing and go through the business case, they see it's a lot more than just smoke marijuana. So definitely from an educational side, very good, because there's a lack of education on all stakeholder groups. And with every person you educate, you give a bit more positive effect on the market. And this is the butterfly effect in a way.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think education is one of the most important things when it comes to this industry, because as you said, it teaches people that they're to kind of remove themselves from this idea of the stigma behind the industry, and learn that there's a lot more to this plant than, just stoners smoking a joint in the park or whatever.
Definitely, exactly. But that's still how a lot of people see it. But we did some research in Switzerland, because there's a lot of, as mentioned, a lack of knowledge. And we asked the people, what do they think, what does that come them to mind when they hear the word cannabis? And a lot of people said smoking, drug, marijuana. And then the second question was, do you affect it positively, negatively, or neutral? Most of them said neutral or negative. And then we asked them in the next question, what do you associate with the word hemp? And hemp was much more positive. The people thought of textiles, they thought of foods, they thought of positive other benefits. And they rated it as neutral to positive and not neutral to negative. So you really have to find out what the people think about each part of it, and then you can communicate in the right way.
That's amazing. And I think asking those kind of questions also helps to kind of see what needs to change and how we can educate people in that way. So I think that's really interesting. So, you were speaking a little bit about the e-commerce side of things. What's it like to be in the kind of e-commerce world and with, cannabis and hemp? Are there a lot of challenges that come with that? What are your thoughts?
There are definitely some challenges when you're selling cannabis over e-commerce stores, even for CBD or normal organic hemp food products. It's very strict regulated, not from a regulatory side of the government, but from the advertiser itself. So, for example, if you want to do Google ads, it's prohibited for most cannabis products. Even for those who are allowed, they do not come through the algorithm. So you cannot do that. The most common e-commerce marketing way you cannot use. Same thing with social media ads, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, whatever. We cannot do it. We can have a profile, we can post something, we can upload stories, etc., but we cannot do paid media. And that's a big issue, because that's the easiest way to grow in e-commerce nowadays. Especially since COVID, the e-commerce has arisen. Now it's already going back a bit, because people in Switzerland like to be out in the shops and buy the things directly in the shop and not e-commerce. But it's definitely a big circumstance we have to face in this industry. And also, if you look to a legalization for the still illegal cannabis products at the moment, if they are legalized and be sold over e-commerce, we are again there, youth protection. How do you prevent the misuse of these kind of e-commerce system through licensing or online registration, verification, etc.? So there are a lot of issues we have to consider also for the future. And another big issue which needs to be mentioned is the payment provider. A lot of e-commerce stores all over Europe, all over America, all over Asia, they're facing struggles when they want to offer a credit card payment in their online stores. And there are some solutions at the moment now, but a few years ago it wasn't that easy. And that's all due to compliance issues, because these payment providers have some stigmas against cannabis or negative experiences with companies when all this hype started in Europe, for example. Yeah, I would say these are the most challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's difficult because we do need to be online. Let's be honest. Most of the world is online. That's how a lot of people get their information, buy their product. So, kind of trying to exist in the online space with these restrictions, it does get a bit challenging. But maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what customers can find on the store, the different product offerings, the subsidiaries. I had a look on the website as well. Maybe you can just tell everyone a little bit about what is out there and what they can buy on the site.
Yeah, sure. So for maybe as an example, our web shop cbuy.ch is focusing on the three segments which I mentioned, and it's really an e-commerce platform because it makes it easier for you as a company to communicate when you're marketing an e-commerce platform than a specific cannabis products, because there are still some regulations you need to be considered when communicating about cannabis. And that's why we only, as I mentioned, produce our own products because of quality assurance. We need to know what's in the cannabis products. There can be no containment, etc. And there are a lot of, I would call them greyhounds out there, which still offer products which do not comply to the regulations. So that's why we only offer our own brand. Old Donald's is focusing on lifestyle products, so hemp buds, accessories for hemp products, etc. While Herbalia, the second brand, goes for organic foods and cosmetical products containing CBD. And we are selling them through our e-commerce platform or through pharmacies, etc., at drugstores, at organic hemp food stores, so our B2B partners. And all behind that, we have the possibility for companies, for B2B partners to do private labeling. So we have over 50 formulations which can be used as your own and made fitted to your own benefits and needs. And from there on, you can create your own products with us. That's how we offer our services.
That's very cool. And I think that's great because everyone is different, and being able to tailor different things for different people, that's so useful, because sometimes you can search and not find something that is actually 100% suited to you. So that's really cool. I love that. And of course, lifestyle and well-being are big focuses for you guys. Why is lifestyle and well-being so important to your company and to yourself as well?
For us, it's a big matter because, as I mentioned at the beginning, we see cannabis has a lot of potential, and this potential has to be part of every part of our life. So it has to be 360 degrees. So this whole well-being, we're living in a really fast-moving and stressing world, I would say. Most of the people would say they are stressed in a way. And from there on, there are some helpful materials like hemp-based, and to bring you this kind of well-being and relaxation to you.
Yeah, 100%. I think especially after the pandemic, we're still in it. There's still a lot of places that are struggling, and that has caused a lot of stress for a lot of people. So now more than ever, these kind of products are what people should be using. It's much better for you than other medications. So I think that's really great.
Yes. And cannabis here again has to be seen as an additional. It's a natural ingredient which can be helpful in many ways, but it should not replace everything else. For example, you mentioned medical treatments, etc. It should not be the opinion out there that it replaces everything and helps for every issue. That's definitely not the matter, but it has a lot of potential to optimize and bring positive benefits into it.
And that's where education comes in again to it, right? Just to educate people on what it can and can't do, because there is also a lot of clickbait out there on the internet, saying, oh, this will cure everything, but that's not always the case, is it?
Exactly, definitely.
And of course, sustainability is also very important to your company. Can you talk a little bit about your efforts to produce sustainably and also regionally?
Yes, because as I mentioned, cannabis is a natural product, and it can be grown all over the world. In some parts not, but it really has good conditions out there to grow cannabis. And we see cannabis in Switzerland it's one of the oldest use plants we have on the world. So we know how to cultivate it, and it makes no sense to bring it abroad just for marketing reasons, etc. We really have to think now about our planet. So all this matters, and it's not only the product, it goes much further with the packaging, etc. And we really do try to select our suppliers according to these qualifications. We do the due diligence on our suppliers, and we know that they do not do greenwashing. They really do operate sustainable, and that's very important for us, because we as a startup, we have the possibility now to build up this whole on a sustainable level, and not like big companies which are in the markets for 50, 60 years, which have to change. So it's in my opinion, every company nowadays should go in such an approach.
I totally agree with you. And as you said, you can start off on a good note, unlike some people who have to now change their whole kind of way of production to be more sustainable because they've been operating in a completely different way for 50, 60 years, as you said. So that is at least an advantage for startups today, right?
Right, exactly.
Maybe just if you can talk a little bit more about the history of cannabis in Switzerland.
Yeah, sure. So a long time ago, cannabis, like every other part of the world, was used for foods and mostly for textiles. So there, in Switzerland, we have a valley which is called the Hemp Valley because there was a lot of cannabis grown there. And there are right next to our office there is another community which has on their banner hemp leaf, for example, because they cultivated a lot of hemp there. So on an agricultural aspect, there's a big of knowledge and awareness to cannabis. But with the whole international the Narcotic Act from the UN about the prohibition of cannabis for recreational reasons, etc. We in Switzerland orientated us on these regulations, and from there on it was prohibited a long time ago. But we always had a liberal approach than other countries to cannabis, so there was no big issue from a law side. But sometime you would have been chased for growing cannabis. And now since 2016, when CBD market was legalized in Switzerland, the whole approach changed also from authority and political aspect. So everybody is now working on legalizations, but you have to find a way which is okay for every party involved.
Absolutely. And I know you did touch on this a little bit, talking about the future and that it will take a while. But are there any other predictions that you might have for the future of the industry in Switzerland? Any kind of things that might happen in the next, let's say, 10 years? What do you think the market could potentially look like in Switzerland?
I think that the Swiss market will be very protected because we have a lot of producers and good quality standard in Switzerland, so there is no need to bring foreign markets to Switzerland. So the Swiss market, the small market, really wants to be for itself. And there will be definitely some big companies entering these markets in maybe now with the CBD market. I do not think they will, but when the legalization comes, you see it happen in other countries, then it's the time when the big players come into it. But until then, we have a lot of companies, small companies with just 2 to 3 employees with a local store, etc. And that's how the market is still segmented and will be also in the future. But there will be a consolidation in a way because due to COVID and the stagnation on the cannabis market, there are many companies which do not make it because they have not the financial resources, because they're just small local stores in a way.
Absolutely, and I think we can definitely see that happening in other places in the world, like in Canada and the US. I think a lot of the smaller companies are facing that exact challenge because the bigger companies come in, and that's just something that happens. It's just the way it works, right? In any industry.
You have to be prepared for that in such a rising market.
For sure. And in the future, what kind of role do you think that Switzerland could potentially play in the European market and even in the global market on a bigger scale?
I think Swiss cannabis products in the international level will survive as luxury goods. They are really high quality standard, which you can bring the benefits into the markets. But for a big impact from a regulatory perspective, will Switzerland not have? Because in my opinion, Switzerland will be not one of the first countries which will move on with the legalizations. There are other countries like Czech, for example, which are not talking about legalization maybe before Germany. So I think there's a big going on, and we, Switzerland, sometimes tend to be a bit slower than the others and wait and see how they get it done. So I think the Swiss market will not have a big importance, but it's still a great market to go in when you have luxury products.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's a place for all different kinds of markets in this industry. I mean, I think that's really great. And as you said, it gives you a lot to learn from what the other countries are doing wrong and right.
Exactly. That's like it is in Switzerland.
And so of course, in some regions around the world, specifically in North America, some legalization efforts are going beyond cannabis to include, for example, psychedelics. Do you think that there will be ever a space for this type of conversation in the Swiss market, or even just in Europe in general?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because what I know from some politicians we know and talk about about such matters, there is definitely awareness already also on a political level for these matters. And we know that prohibition failed in every way, so we have to try another attempt. And I think cannabis can bring a big benefit in there. But when you talk about psychedelics, I think it would be like in some phases. So in the first step, only for medical purposes. That's already happening in Switzerland, in Europe, and in the US. So this market is already there, and also for recreational reasons. But I think this will take much longer than 5 to 7 years. It's in Switzerland, as an example. It will take 10 to 20 years. And then we have some legal framework for also recreational purposes. But I think it's the same thing with everything. The prohibition, as I mentioned, failed a lot of times. So we have to find much more liberal approaches to reduce the harm to society and our nature.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you said, I think it will take a bit longer. I mean, we're still struggling with cannabis legalization in many ways with the stigma. So, I mean, psychedelics is just a whole nother story, right? So I think it will take time. There's still a lot of research, I think, that needs to be done. But I'm very interested to see what happens in the future with that.
Definitely, yeah. But as I mentioned, it's same on cannabis. You have to do it data driven, because that's a big matter. It's a lack of data also, and a lot of authorities, etc., will not change regulations on just some sentences. A young startup founder, for example, says you really have to bring the data, and then you will be heard and can make a move on from there.
For sure, for sure. I totally agree with you. And of course, there are a lot of cannabis events that are popping up all over the world. Of course, we met at ICBC in Berlin earlier this year. Are there any cannabis events in Switzerland that you can maybe talk about? Any that happened this past year that were noteworthy? Any that may be coming up next year?
Yeah, there are like 2 big event series which are taking part every year in Switzerland. So for the consumer side, it's the Canna Trade. That's one of the oldest and biggest, I think, for consumers in Europe. And it's mostly in Zurich or in the capital in Bern. And there it's really about all the consumer come there and are excited about the new product, see how the market grows, what is out there, because they see also it's much more than just a smokable material, raw material. And the other part is more for B2B purposes. It's a cannabis CB Expo, it's called Cannabis Business Expo Switzerland, which is taking part in Zurich. And it's really about B2B business, about speeches, so good discussions on the stage, and about networking. So really bring cannabis as a business forward. And as you mentioned, together as one unit, because the market has enough to overcome. So we don't have to fight ourselves in these markets. So we have to be one unit and know who the other people is and work with these people.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I think that networking is one of the most important things in this industry. I'm sure you'll agree. And it also helps us to see what is happening in other parts of the world, speak to people from different countries and see, what's happening there and how we can help each other. So I think that's really great. Do you think that the cannabis events in Switzerland will start to increase in coming years?
No, I think it will stay as it is at the moment, because it's not a big growth there. We have seen it now after COVID. The first events haven't been that much visited than the events before. So I think there will still be Canna Trade and CB Expo.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I totally forgot. There was now this year the first medical cannabis cannabinoid conference in Basel. It was in October. This is the third event which will take part annually.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, hopefully I'll be able to come and attend one of those next year. I would love to visit Switzerland personally. And of course, doing the e-commerce, you also have a lot of experience in marketing, and just to jump back into, you know, bringing cannabis online. And of course, as you mentioned, there's a lot of censorship, shadow banning. It's difficult to advertise on social media. So what are your thoughts on taking cannabis into the online space in the future of cannabis online? Do you think things will change and will become a little bit less restrictive?
I think it will take some years, and then also the regulations on social media and Google, etc., may fall, because I think the algorithms will be much better, because now cannabis is just seen as one big matter. And with every segmentation we do on the market, it can be much more separated. But that also takes quite a while, and the will of these companies for sure. But also for such as organic hemp foods products, etc., it will be still hard to be sold online, even if they are legal. And as I mentioned, also the illegal products which will be legalized. I think it's not sure that they will be allowed to sell online e-commerce in a first way, maybe in a later stage, but the youth protection is a big issue, and the consumer control, so you don't get more addicted people, etc. So they will really want to have a store where the people can go into and meet other people with knowledge who know what they are selling them, not just through self-information online. So I think cannabis faces a difficult future, you know, when you see it as an online business.
Absolutely, yes. And I think, you know, that's what we're doing at CanMar, right? We've created this app and for everyone to come in on a safe space to just talk about things, you know, because it's not always necessarily just, you know, B2C. You know, we also maybe want to have these kind of B2B conversations, which are difficult to do on other social media platforms. So I totally agree with you. And I think we will definitely see that as a continuing challenge in the future. So talking about challenges, actually, you know, we've spoken about a lot of challenges that we're facing, either, you know, on a local level or a global level. What do you think are some of the best ways that we can try and work towards overcoming some of the main challenges in the cannabis industry?
So I would say the biggest thing we can do to make this successful moving forward is to work as a unit, as I mentioned. The industry has to represent themselves in each country as one unit, and everybody has to talk about the same thing and same targets in the long term. It's normal. Every company wants to gain, make sales, increase their company, make some growth, but it all has to be in a clear legal framework, and that's the second part of it. We only can do it if we really create a clear framework. And there are issues there. I mentioned the payment providers before, for example. Another big issue we are facing and we have to overcome in long term is the whole banking industry, because even in Europe, Asia and USA, again, Africa, everywhere, it's the banks do not want to finance the cannabis industry. They have a lot of issues, not only financing, but even just make an account so you can pay your bills, etc., through electronical. That's a really big issue. And also with insurances, the same thing. So we as a startup, our seed round, we raised 2.7 million, and we all have to do that into production, etc. And we had no insurances because no company wanted to give us an insurance. It was a total legal and legitimate business, but we did that all on total risk. And luckily now we have bank and insurances, but there are a lot of companies out there which have good business models, a solid background, good sales structure, professional employees, and they do not have any of these things. And I hear stories from the US market, for example, that there are still the big chains, etc., which are taking everything in cash and need to store it in cash. And that's not how we can operate as a legitimate economical industry. And that's where also the regulatory side needs to check what can they do from a perspective, because these are private companies which are setting the rules, and we have to regulate it in a way which everybody is benefiting from.
Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I think, to go back to your first point, I think working together and helping each other is really how we're going to move this industry forward even further. So I totally agree with that. And as a CEO of a startup, a cannabis entrepreneur, as we like to use that term, do you have any advice that you would give to anyone who wants to start their own cannabis-related business? Any words of wisdom to share?
Yeah, in my opinion, one of the biggest inputs I can give there is sometimes small is bigger. So if you're starting new and setting up, really stay focused, take your products you want to have, and then move forward from there on, and really get clear what is your business model, what you want to do out there, and never give up, because there will be a lot of challenges and there will be a lot of struggles, but you need to keep moving forward, and that's the only way you will not fail, because regulations may change in a rapid pace, and you have to adapt to it. And if you are, that's the third thing now. You have to be innovative. You have to stay tuned and know where the market is going to and what are the development the consumer needs. So when you do it, you have to do a lot of research in this market, and you need to be compliant. So there will be many costs for legal issues, just for you to know the legal situation and matters, etc. How do you need to label the products? Which claims are allowed, etc. These are issues you face in every business, but you have to keep them in mind, in cannabis especially.
Absolutely, yeah. It constantly keeps you on your toes. As you said, there are things that are constantly changing. So you have to be the type of person who's willing to, roll with the punches in a way.
Yeah, definitely. Good description.
So just as we start to wrap up here, are there any specific products that you might like to recommend on the e-commerce store? Any products that you would recommend to people? So maybe your favorite products?
Yeah, sure. So my favorite product is, because I have long working days always, our Good Night hemp tea. It's totally free of CBD and THC. It's all about hemp leaves combining with other natural ingredients like citrus verbena here in this matter. And also the big part I know from a personal side also, because I know a lot of people which benefited with some skin issues from CBD. So check out our cosmetical products. They really have a high quality standard, are vegan, free from microplastic, etc. We're actually in the process for certifying them as natural cosmetics. So they really has a sustainable product which your body can take a few benefits from it, especially when you grow older and have pain, etc.
Exactly. That's wonderful. Thanks, Marco. Is there anything else you would like to add? Maybe something that we didn't touch on during our chat? Anything extra you would like to add?
From my side, I hopefully could give you a great insight on the Swiss market, because, as you know, it's a complex thing in every market. So it's, in my opinion, what you do as CanMar and also with this podcast here is it's what it's all about now. We have to bring the people together and do education and bring the informations out there, because there is a lot of knowledge in this market. We have a lot of experts which were long time acting in an illegal space and now are in the legal space also. So we have a lot of knowledge from new experts and old experts, and we have to bring that together and move forward to bring also the politics and the regulatory side forward. So props out to you for this concept. I really like to be guest in your podcast, and hopefully it was a pleasure for you to see a bit more about Switzerland.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed our chat today, Marco. It was very interesting to see what's happening in the Swiss market. And as I said before, hopefully next year I'll be able to come and see it in person at one of these events. So I really just want to thank you so much for being a part of this as well. It was really great to have you on and great to chat to you again. And I'm wishing you guys all the best for the future, and I hope you get some great investments as well.
Thank you very much. Same to you. And stay focused. Keep on the good work.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for watching or listening to the CanMar Morning Talk Show. Join us next time for your weekly dose of cannabis and psychedelics updates from the industry's experts. But wait, before you go, did you know that CanMar is leading global change within the cannabis and psychedelics industry? We are building customizable ecosystems, providing solutions to recruitment, offering regulatory and compliance services, and community hub for the global network. Some might say we are the future. If you haven't already, download the CanMar Hub app or check out our website at canmar.io to see what we're getting up to. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button below to hear more juicy insights from the movers and shakers of the cannabis and psychedelics industry. Until next time, stay dope.